Alright, so hello and welcome back to the continued coverage of the walkthrough series, and in this episode we are looking at 9618 variant 42 of October 2024, and we'll be doing the Python implementation for question number 1. So let's go ahead and look at what we have. So here we have question 1, and it says that a computer game is designed for users to select characters. Each character can take part in a group of events. Each group has 5 events. There are 4 types of events: jump, swim, run, drive. The program is written using object-oriented programming. Then part A gives us a class diagram. So you remember that with the class diagram, we have the fields or attributes in the first section, then you have the methods or functions in the bottom section right there. So our first task here is to create, or rather write program code to declare the class called event item and its constructor, and we are not to declare any other methods. So let's go ahead and look at the implementation that I have going on here. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more time so that you can actually see the code a bit better. All right, so right there on lines 2 to line 6, that's where we have the implementation for the event class as well as its constructor. So you remember that with Python, you do not need to declare the fields necessarily, right? You can just declare them directly inside of your constructor. So we have the class definition on line 2 there. Then on line 3, we declare our constructor. And you see that I'm using the convention that I did point out a few videos ago, I think, or maybe you might not be seeing these in order. So what we are doing on line 3 there is, since Python is interpreted, it means that you do not need to explicitly define a function, rather a variable name, a variable type rather, when you use it. So what we are doing there is convention that allows us to specify or to indicate the type of variable that the constructor should expect when it is called. So in this particular instance on line 3, we are specifying that, so obviously the first parameter that you're always going to pass to your constructor definition, as well as any other function that you define inside of a class, is going to be self. So that's what we have going on there. Then we have event name, which is going to be a string. So we are specifying that it is going to be a string by you having a colon, then str. Then event type is also going to be a string, and difficulty is going to be an integer. So this is how you can specify the type of variable, of value rather, that's going to be expected when the constructor is called later on in the code. Then another thing that I'm using right there on lines 4 to line 6, it's a convention, or rather a technique called name mangling, right? That is NAME-MANGLING, name mangling. So Python automatically changes the name of the variable when you use name mangling. It's automatically going to change the name of the variable to include the class name, is it? And the idea behind name mangling is so that this variable becomes difficult to access outside of this particular class. So let's say if we were going to have event name in this other class down here called character, it would be difficult for this class to actually have access to this particular variable name, because the name mangling technique, it allows that for when Python now interprets this line of code at runtime, it's actually going to prepend or to put the name of the class right there at the front. So it's going to have event name just before event item, sorry, just before event name right there. So it's a Python convention that you can always implement, or you can also adopt in your programs. But of course, if you didn't want to do the same thing right here, you can just ignore it and just have your event name directly without using name mangling. Again, I'm doing this so that I show you Python best practices as you continue covering, or as you continue to grow more confident in your Python. So it's a good idea to adopt these best practices whenever you can. But if you don't want to do it, and if it is too much work, then it's still fine. You can just get rid of this name mangling convention right there, and your code would still work just fine. All right, so having done that, you can go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then we also have, let's see if we have anything else that we need to do here. So we'll be done with this one. So you would, of course, copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. And now moving on to item number 2, we are to write program code for the 3 get methods. So that's get name, get difficulty, and get event type. So coming back to the code, you see that we have the getters right here. And again, we are indicating, since getters are going to access private fields inside of a class, they are going to return that particular value of a certain data type. So we know that get name is going to get a string because the name is a string. Get event type is going to return the event type, and the event type is a string. Then the get difficulty getter is going to return an integer because get difficulty, or rather difficulty, is an integer as specified right there on the constructor. So that's how you go about it. Then of course you'd go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of evidence document. Then moving on to part B, we have the array group, which is going to store 5 objects of type event item rather. So we have to write program code to declare group local to the main program. So let's go ahead and look at that implementation here. So I have my main method down here, it's right here. So you see that initially we are declaring group is an empty list right there on line 49. Then you, of course, you'll be done. Just doing that, you'll be okay. So you can go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of evidence document. Then multiplying by none simply means that we are initializing. Actually, supposed to be. Let me fix this. We are going to store 5 items. So let me remove this. Then let me put none inside of brackets right there. So this is proper now. I made a mistake. All right, so we are just declaring in a list that's going to have 5 objects with none or now as their elements, is it? So it's just going to have placeholders for whatever we are going to put in there. Then one group has the following events. So these are the events, right? And the event name, the type, and the difficulty. So we have to write program code to create an instance of event type for each of the 5 events and store them in group. So let's go ahead and look at that implementation there. So you see that now we are making use of our group variable on line 49 right here. Then inside of it, we are simply instantiating a new object. And each object is going to have the specified event name, event type, and event difficulty. So coming back to this one, you see that we have bridge, jump, and 3, is it? So this is the first row inside of this table. Then the second row, it's water, weight, swim, and difficulty of 4. So you actually see that right here. So we do the rest of the events, instantiating new objects of type event item. And then yeah, you would have completed answering this part, and you'd go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then moving on to part C, we have another class called character. It is going to store data about the characters in the game. So we have the information pertaining to the class character there. So we have to write program code to declare the class character in this constructor and get method. So let's go ahead. So you see that it actually has one get method. It's called get name, right? The other one is a constructor, and it's the other one is calculate score, which we'll implement later on. So let's come back to the code right here and look at the implementation for the class code character. So you see the constructor right there, is it? So you see the parameters: self, character name, which is a string, jump, which is an integer, swim, integer, run, integer, drive, integer, right? I could just according to the class diagram right here. Is it nothing fancy here? You're just following the class diagram right there. Then they also said that we should have the getter, which is get name. So get name is going to return a string, which is essentially the character name. And again, I'm using name mangling right there on line 28. Again, if you don't want to do it, you can just get rid of the what? Of the underscores there. But I just want to keep them because it's Python convention. All right, so then, yeah, I think you'll be done. So you'd copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then moving on to the method calculate score. So it's inside of the character class. It's going to calculate and return the percentage chance of a character completing an event. So here we have information pertaining to the completion as well as the skill levels for the characters. But essentially, this table is what we need right here. So it's saying that if there's a difference between the skill level, let me come to where they right here. This example, if you take a look at bullet point number 4 here, it says that the skill level, right, is 5, and rather the event difficulty is 5 and the skill level is 3. So if you get a difference of 2, then it means that the percentage of success is going to be 60. So that's what we are simply doing right there. So if the difference between the event difficulty and the skill level is 1, then that character has an 80% chance of completing the event. Then if the difference between the event difficulty and the skill level is 2, they have a 6% chance, and so forth and so on, right? So that's essentially what they are doing right there, rather describing right here on these bullet points. So let's go ahead and look at the implementation of the calculate score method or function. So it's going to take 2 parameters as indicated right here. Alright, so right here, so it takes the type of event and difficulty as parameters. So you see that we are doing that right there on line 31. So the event type and the difficulty. Then eventually we are going to return a string, so that's why we have that arrow int right there. Actually, it's in hyphen and greater than sign. Then what we having done that, we are going to calculate the percentage chance of the character completing the event. So to do that, we are using a dictionary in Python. So if you don't know what a dictionary is, I would suggest that you check out my my Python series. It's here on my channel. So I go through, rather I go about covering different data structures like dictionaries in Python. So a dictionary is essentially going to be a key value pair. So we have the key and the value. So the key is jump and the value is self dot double underscore jump. Then the key is swim and the value is self dot underscore swim. So it's essentially going to be whatever the value of jump is, whatever the value of swim is, and so forth and so on. So essentially what we're simply doing here is we have this dictionary going on. Then the skill level is we are saying that for this dictionary, we are simply going to get the event type and 0, right? That's essentially what we're going to be doing. Then if the skill level is greater than or equal to the difficulty level, then there's a 100% chance that they are going to complete the event. Otherwise, we have to move on and calculate a percentage chance of completing the event. So first of all, you remember that the percentage chance of success is going to be determined by the difference, the difference between the difficulty and the skill level. So we want to calculate the difficulty minus the skill level right here and store that as the difference. Then again on line 43, we are using a dictionary. So we have another key value pair going on there. So we have, if the difference is 1, then there's an 80% chance. Difference of 2, 60% chance, and so forth and so on. So in the event that we have a difference of either one of these 4, right, we are simply going to return mapping.getDifference, right? So that's what we are doing there, and we are using the get again from the character class. So that's what we are doing with the calculate score right here. Then having done that, you can go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then let's see here. So we have 2 characters are attempting each event in the group you created in part 1. So we have Taz, and this is his skill level for each of the events. And we have Jenny, and this is his or her skill levels for each particular event. Then we are to instantiate character objects for both players. So let's go ahead and look at that. So that's what we are supposed to do inside of the main program. So coming to the main program, you see that we are instantiating 2 characters, Taz and Jenny, and they are both instances of the character class. So we are passing the name as well as the skill levels. Then after doing that, we need to both characters are going to take part in each event in the group you created in part 1b. So essentially what we simply need to do is we need to calculate their scores for each of the 5 events and output who's going to win each event as it were. Again, you can always pause the question and read it in detail. I'm not going to do that because the video is going to be too long. But essentially, I did read through everything when I was coming up with the solution. So I encourage you to pause the video, make sure that you understand the requirements, and then unpause the video and compare the solution with what you might have attempted. Or if you are just following along with the code that I have going on here, you definitely want to understand the question in more detail. So I'll just come here and explain what's going on. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through every event in the group and we calculate the score for each player. So again, you see that we are making use of the calculate score, which is inside of the character class. And we are also going to get the event type and the event difficulty. So essentially, this is just going to calculate the score for Taz and for Jenny for both for each of the events inside of the group. Then here we are now checking to see who has the most points. So if Taz has the most is more points than Jenny, we are simply going to record increment the total points for Taz by 1. Then we output that Taz wins the name of the event. Otherwise, if Jenny has more points than Taz, then we simply want to record a win for Jenny or a point for Jenny. Then we output that Jenny wins which event. Then if they both have an equal number of points, then we simply say that it's a draw. Then we also going to have to, right after doing that, that is finding after finding the total score inside of each event in the group, the last part of the question requires us that we output the overall winner, is it? So for the particular group, so remember these two characters are inside of the same group, is it? So if Taz has more points than Jenny, then he wins the group. Otherwise, if Jenny has more points than Taz, then he wins the group. Then if they have equal number of points, then it means they it's a draw, right? So that's essentially what we're doing right there. Again, there's really not much going on here. You see that this is just simple implementation. It's a simple if statement in both cases. Then this one is just a simple loop. Then we are just using the object getters here to retrieve rather the values for each respective object. And again here on line 74, line 77, 82, 84, and and 84, we are just format printing, is it? So format printing is different from your conventional printing where you have to concatenate your strings with a plus, is it? Here you are just using an F, then your curly braces to output variables, as it were. So having done that, you would have concluded your solutions or implementations, as it were. Then we are to test our program and take a screenshot of the output. So let's go ahead and do that right here. So I would like to change directory to November 24 variant 42. Then inside of here, the name of my script is question 1 underscore. So let me just go ahead and type the name of the file there. So v42.py. Hit enter. Alright, so I'm getting an error there. Question 1. Alright, it's saying that is not recognizable, so it means I must have an error somewhere. Let me see. N24. The issue is I didn't invoke the Python interpreter, so that's why it's giving me that error. So let me invoke the Python interpreter so it knows that we want it to run this file. So if I hit enter, you see that I actually get the output right there. So maybe let me just clear the screen, then run the command one more time. Then you would actually see the winner for each event and the overall winner right there is the final line. So of course you'd go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of your evidence document. So yeah, that's just about it for this video. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one.